You got us back to talking about something. Word. They're airing old speeches of Ronald Reagan. This particular speech, because they're doing a show about World War II veterans. We've talked today about World War II a lot actually, but wait a minute now. It's very important, like, to talk about Ronald Reagan. I'm real glad that you see. He's making a speech about honoring the World War II generation and saying, like, about the ideals we stand for. Now here's the thing. We made, first of all, when I see, ow. We talk. Hold on. Time out a second. Reagan is really important to talk about. If that you were signaling me, that is what do I see when I see Ronald Reagan, and what the people at me see. It's really important. I to tell to I think this is important information. You gotta know that this is important for you. Remember, they see that Beyonce clip where there's a controversy because she used a clip from that word combination when the reporter about the Challenger. Do you know the minute they played the sample, the whole childhood memory of it passed through my eyes. When I was a little kid, I put a VHS tape in and taped the news coverage. It was the first thing like that I'd seen, and I watched it over and over again. Maybe it was like 8 years old or something. I was really young. Watched it over and over, and I remember, it was a big event for kids going to. I think it was in third grade. Hold on a second. Ronald Reagan was president. I was in the third grade, and we all was a big part of our mental architecture growing up in the 80s. We were in third grade, but we had all been prepped, like they told us in class about. Was her name Krista McCall? Why do I have it wrong? But I don't want to say the wrong name. It was Christy McCulloch. But this what she was gonna go. The first person who wasn't really an astronaut. Remember, we've talked about the space program and how important it is to the function of our economy, and that often people misperceive why we go to space, or why we have NASA. That's a fundamental of growing the whole economy. That there wouldn't be what's happening now, where it's like depression conditions for most people, quite frankly. Okay, it's largely because NASA has been shut down in a way that would indicate that this has to stop. That's not how our. But okay, we were very interested in space, and the missions were very important under Reagan. But they played that Beyonce clip where it's controversial because she sampled what the newscasters said when they were trying to figure out what had happened. They all saw it explode, but I mean, no one was exactly sure if that was like if they didn't realize that the whole thing had exploded at first, and that the line is, he said, well, it would definitely appear there's been some sort of technical malfunction. Like, didn't want to jump to the conclusion that the entire thing had exploded just before it even launched out of the atmosphere. Okay, I mean, in the sight of everyone. Everyone remembers that very well. Grew up as a kid in the '80s, but also was the first person who wasn't an astronaut was gonna be a guest, like was gonna get to go to space, and she was a teacher, and I think she taught like kids around our age. It was a big deal. Like this woman who's not really an astronaut, but she's gonna send the first teacher to space, so she could, and that'll be like a part of it, and all the meaning that comes with it. An American junior high school teacher will be on the space mission and getting a chance to go into space. Now here's the thing: Ronald Reagan was president, then Gorbachev was president in the Soviet Union, which was still in existence. Now here's the thing: during that, when I see Reagan, you see, if depending on where you were, if you were an adult at that time, it's very different. But people who grew up with Reagan, and when Gorbachev was in the Soviet Union, that was during the Realpolitik phase, whatever. But okay, but like that was a big part of like growing up, was like Ronald Reagan. Here's the thing, though: the side we were on, see, it's always been a two-class society. But I mean, not like this is something unfamiliar. What's happening now? This doesn't look like America. This looks like we used to call it third world country for real. In terms of this isn't okay. It has to stop. But here's the thing: at that time, the Reagan Revolution, if you were in the part of the society that benefited from what was called the Reagan Bull, meaning educating people that don't know, there's never been before. It's called the Reagan Revolution for a reason, a kind of reorganization of government and everything that they could possibly rearrange, fired, stacked every single thing that was supposed to represent labor with anti-union bureaucrats who were like sort of agents of the Reagan Revolution, restructuring of anything they could in the interest of capital and the investor class. Okay, so that is the Reagan Revolution. But people who grew up, like let's say with parents who were like, the father was like building a business. Okay, people doing that and like putting some money away in the stock market became very wealthy during that period. So they didn't really ask many questions about what was taking place. That is to say, like they ran. If you look at the commercials, you'll never see commercials like that for a president again. It's almost surreal to watch him on YouTube. What was when he was elected the second time? This is how people made so much money that they did. This was all they said in the commercial, very famous commercial. They said like Ronald Reagan's running for president, and they showed the sun coming up, and they said it's morning in America. The mail's being delivered. Kids are going off to school. It's a beautiful day. Like, don't you want to vote for Ronald Reagan again? I mean, that was the ad. Everything's going fine. Like, they're delivering the mailman came with the mail. I mean, it was surreal. It's like what you would see the 80s, what we found out when we got older was that, look, some people knew about it who were from, like, if you knew about certain things. But no, if you were from a family that was, like, say, starting a business. No. All you knew is people were making an incredible amount of money, and it was like part of the culture without any sense of the sort of sickness of it. Like people had they'd sell these T-shirts. Whoever dies with the most toys when he's buried wins. I mean, people didn't. No one really like thought much about it because people were getting so wealthy so fast who had not been before. Okay, here's the thing: when we found out as we got older, and some people already knew what was actually taking place is this. Okay, but see, when I see him, a lot goes through people's mind as to what I think of this person who was an actor playing the president. What actually was taking place is the American government was underground, making way for the neoliberal project that came later. The whole government was, in some sense, acting underground, murdering people all over Latin America. And then to the degree that any of the news got to us, they said, well, there's some communist activity, no communist activity at all, with the paramilitaries in South America and the CIA. They were installing right-wing governments that took their orders from Washington and murdering priests and labor leaders and people who represented farmers and anyone who'd get in the way of breaking open their markets and continuing with this sort of revolution in basically a war against the poor, farmers, the destitute in the interest of capital. No one who was like in the sector that was sort of like in the market or in business was getting the news, partly because it wasn't in the news. There's Chomsky's book, the best book on the subject, but it's not in bookstores. You have to order it. It's called Thought Control in Democratic Societies, and explains it's basically about America and South America at that time, vis-a-vis like the way in which people were unaware of reality. Okay, but that set the stage for everything we talk about in these videos. So when you see Reagan now, like what I see, of course, is an actor. I mean, I see like how did no one care? It's an actor playing someone called Ronald Reagan who knew, when you look at his diaries, he knew nothing about what he was happening. He was being told to say things, and his diaries indicate he was an old man who was an actor who'd been governor, and he sort of kind of liked what he was being asked to say. But it sounded good to him, and that's sort of all he knew. He wasn't really in charge of the country, nor did he know what was taking place because they kept that from him. He was just going to play the president while they did the most incredible, like, murderous things all over, but we're still in that. I mean, it still followed forward. The next, in the 90s, that's what had made way for the free trade agreements that again, benefited this time a really high sector of the economy that's transnational. I mean, but this is when the rhetoric about markets, like, in this way started, and if you were making money during that time, it was a lot like, it was one of these periods that was very frivolous. Growing up then, it was kind of like the 50s where it was like sock hops and hula hoops, and very few people were really unaware of what was taking place in the world and our role in it. So if you bang on Reagan, that's the picture that people like me have, but we don't want that to ever happen again, and it's happening again, that people are unaware of reality. and we don't want a repeat of the 80s, but people are in so many ways unaware of what's been taking place, what the free trade agreements are, what this market nonsense is, what it means that NASA's being gutted, why it looks like the Dust Bowl for most people, and what ways that it has to stop, that we keep going into errors where people are made less and less aware of reality. It's not safe because so many people are harmed, and overseas it's really sick. People need to know what's happening, what the country is doing, what it has become, what it is. That's so important. But put me in pain when there's an image of Reagan talking about World War II, like and this and that. I mean, it was all rhetoric. I mean, but that's important. That's important. It's probably why Beyonce put that clip on her song, quite frankly. Not to be controversial, but in the way that all artists know how to do something that's political, but maybe not in the way you would think.